The sound that broke my wedding day wasn't a shout or a crash. It was a giggle. A soft, muffled giggle coming from the bride's room, where my wedding dress, the one my grandmother wore, was hanging. My heart pounded in my chest, a sudden cold fear washing over me. My name is Chelsea Gagnon. I'm 26 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I have lived in the shadow of my older sister, Amelia. She was the star, the sun that everyone orbited. I was just the quiet planet, happy to get a little of her warmth. I pushed the door open gently. The sight that greeted me shattered my world into a million tiny pieces. There was my fiancé, Mark, looking pale and guilty. And there was Amelia, a pair of scissors on the floor beside her. Between them, my beautiful wedding dress hung in shreds. Tears streamed down my face. "What did you do?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Amelia stood up, a fake look of shock on her face. "Oh, Chelsea. It was an accident. The fabric caught on my bracelet, and it just ripped. I was trying to fix it." But I saw the small, triumphant smirk she tried to hide. I looked at Mark, begging him with my eyes to say something, to fix this. He just stared at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. My dream wasn't just ripped, it was murdered by the two people I trusted most. My mother rushed in, her gasp echoing in the silent room. "It's ruined. The wedding is ruined," she cried, her hands flying to her face. My father followed, his face turning red with anger. All their eyes were on me, filled with pity. They thought it was over. Amelia looked at me, a cruel glint in her eyes. She thought she had won. She believed she had finally broken me, ensuring that my special day would be a disaster. She thought I had nothing left. She was wrong. Because that's when my grandma walked in. She took one look at the tattered dress, then at Amelia's smug face, and then at my tear-streaked cheeks. She didn't panic. A slow, knowing smile spread across her lips as she looked right at me. "Don't you worry, my sweet girl," she said, her voice calm and strong. "She made one big mistake." My grandma paused, letting the silence hang in the air before delivering the final blow. She ripped the wrong dress. Amelia's perfect smile finally dropped. She had no idea what was about to happen, but I was about to give her the show of a lifetime. If you want to see her face when I walk down that aisle, make sure you're subscribed. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Amelia's face went pale, her perfect mask of innocence cracking. "Wrong dress? That's crazy. That was your dress, Grandma. We all saw it." She looked at my mother for support, but Mom was just staring at Grandma, confused. Mark stayed silent, his guilt a heavy cloak around him. My grandmother ignored them all. She gently took my hand, her touch firm and reassuring. "Come with me, Chelsea. Let them clean up their mess." She led me out of the room, leaving Amelia sputtering in a cloud of her own poison. Her eyes promised a story I never knew. As we walked down the hall to her room, a memory flashed in my mind. I was a little girl, sitting on her lap. "Always have a secret, my love," she had told me, her voice a soft whisper. Not a bad secret, but a secret strength. Something only you know. She knelt before a large old wooden chest at the foot of her bed, the one I was never allowed to open. From a chain around her neck, she produced a small, silver key. The lock clicked open, and my breath caught in my throat. It smelled of old wood and lavender. Inside, nestled in soft white paper, was a dress that was 1,000 times more beautiful than the one Amelia had destroyed. It was made of delicate lace, with tiny pearls sewn into the sleeves like starlight. This was her real dress. The other one was just a beautiful decoy. "I always knew," Grandma said, her eyes sad but wise. "Jealousy is a sickness, Chelsea. I saw it in your sister a long time ago. I hoped she would outgrow it, but I couldn't risk our family's history on a hope." This wasn't just about a dress. It was about a lifetime of pain. Tears welled in my eyes again, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of sadness, but of overwhelming love for this wise woman. "But Grandma, What about Mark? He just stood there. He let her do it. How could I marry a man who wouldn't protect me? A strange, fierce light ignited in my grandmother's eyes. Putting on this dress is only the first step, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. As for your fiancé, let's just say I made a phone call this morning. Some secrets are meant to come out on a wedding day. What did she mean? Before I could ask, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared on the screen. It was just one sentence. He took all the money from your joint savings account this morning. The world stopped spinning. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a robbery. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, wearing the beautiful dress and holding the terrible text. The hurt in my heart was hardening into something else. Something cold and sharp. The door creaked open. It was my dad. Honey, he said gently. What do we do? I turned from the mirror, a plan forming in my mind. The wedding is on, Dad, I said, my voice steady. But there's been a change of plans. My father's eyes widened, searching my face for an explanation. He saw the tears were gone, replaced by a fire he hadn't seen since I was a little girl who refused to back down from a bully. Chelsea, what's going on? He asked, his voice low. Trust me, Dad, I said, squeezing his hand. I swept out of my grandmother's room, a woman on a mission. The beautiful lace of the dress flowed around me like armor. I wasn't a bride walking to her wedding. I was a queen walking to reclaim her kingdom. I pushed open the door to the bridal room. Amelia and Mark spun around. When they saw me, their jaws dropped. Amelia's face, once so smug, was now a mess of confusion and anger. Where did you get that dress? She stammered, pointing a trembling finger. I ignored her completely, turning instead to my mother, who had followed me in. Mom, it seems Amelia had an accident, with the decoy dress Grandma left out for her. The word decoy hung in the air, a tiny bomb that exploded the last of my sister's pride. Then, I turned my cold gaze to Mark. I held up my phone, letting the screen with the text message about our savings account glow in the dim light. Anything you want to tell me, Mark? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Just then, 2 police officers appeared at the doorway. My mother gasped. Amelia froze in horror. This was my grandmother's phone call. She hadn't just been preparing for a ripped dress. She had been preparing for a war. She knew more than she had let on. One of the officers stepped forward. His eyes locked on my fiancé. Mark Jennings, he asked, his voice official and hard. We have some questions for you regarding fraudulent activity on the Henderson pension fund at your investment firm. It wasn't just about my money. It was bigger. So much bigger. Mark began to sweat, his whole world collapsing in a single moment. He wasn't just a cheater and a thief. He was a serious criminal. My sister had hitched her wagon to a man who was now being escorted away by the police, his hands cuffed behind his back. I watched them take him, feeling nothing but a strange, quiet relief. I gave my sister one last look. She was staring at the empty space where Mark had been, finally realizing the terrible mistake she had made. She hadn't ruined my life. She had just ruined her own. I turned and walked away from the wreckage, my head held high. My father met me at the entrance to the ceremony hall, where hundreds of guests were waiting. The wedding music began to swell. What do we do now? He whispered. I looked out at the crowd and smiled. I'm going to thank my guests for coming, I replied, and give them a party they'll never forget. My dad linked his arm through mine, his grip tight and supportive. The doors swung open, and the soft melody of the wedding march filled the air. Every head turned towards us. I saw hundreds of smiling faces, all expecting to see a blushing, happy bride. They didn't know they were about to witness a coronation. We walked down the long, flower-lined aisle. The whispers started as soon as people realized the altar was empty. There was no groom waiting for me. I could feel the confusion in the air, thick and heavy like storm clouds. My dad squeezed my arm, a silent question. I just kept walking. When we reached the front, I gave my dad a small kiss on the cheek and walked directly to the officiant's microphone. The gentle music faded into silence. Every eye was on me. I took a deep breath, the air filling me with a strange and powerful calm. The show was about to begin. "Hello everyone," I said, my voice ringing out, clear and steady. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us today." I paused, letting the silence stretch. "I'm sorry to announce that there will not be a wedding. The groom, it seems, was called away on an urgent matter with the police." A collective gasp went through the crowd. I didn't give them time to whisper. "But," I continued, a smile spreading across my face, "I have a beautiful dress, a wonderful party, and a room full of people I love. It would be a shame to waste it. So today, we are not celebrating a marriage," I declared. "We are celebrating freedom. We are celebrating truth. And we are celebrating new beginnings." I signaled the DJ, who immediately cut the sad music and blasted a powerful upbeat song. The room erupted in a mixture of shock and applause. As the party started, I saw her. My sister Amelia was trying to sneak out through a side door, her face a mask of shame. Our eyes met across the room. For a second, I thought about exposing her, telling everyone what she did. But then, a hand touched my arm. It was Mark's mother, her eyes filled with tears. "Chelsea," she whispered, her voice trembling with sorrow. "I am so sorry. I always knew my son had a darkness in him, but I never imagined this." She looked like a woman whose heart had been broken. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, black leather book. He stole this from his father's office. He was so angry when he couldn't find the key. She pressed it into my hands. It felt heavy, important. "I think you deserve to know the whole truth." I looked down at the book. It had a small, intricate lock on it, but attached to the clasp was a tiny, familiar silver key. It was a perfect match for the key that hung around my grandmother's neck. Grandma hadn't just given me a dress. She had given me the key to unlock every single one of Mark's lies. I clutched the small black book, its leather cool against my skin. It felt heavier than it should, weighted down with the secrets it held. Mark's mother gave my arm a final, encouraging squeeze before disappearing into the joyous chaos of the party. The party for my new life. I needed to see what was inside, but not here. I found my father by the dance floor, a proud smile on his face. "Keep the party going, Dad. I'll be right back." He nodded, understanding I needed a moment. I turned and walked back to where it all began, the bridal room. My grandmother was waiting for me in the hallway, her eyes knowing. She saw the book, and she saw the key still in my hand. "His grandfather destroyed our family years ago," she said, her voice a low, steady hum of ancient anger. "He and your grandfather were partners before he stole everything. This isn't just about Mark," she continued. "It's about justice that is 70 years overdue. That key was the only thing your grandfather had left of their business. I always knew it would open a door for us one day." My personal heartbreak was now part of a much older, deeper story of betrayal. We entered the room together. The ruined decoy dress lay on the floor like a ghost. I sat down, placed the book on my lap, and fitted the silver key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click. I took a deep breath and opened the cover. It was a handwritten ledger. Page after page of names, dates, and numbers. A meticulous record of every dollar Mark had stolen from the pension funds of innocent, hard-working people. He was more of a monster than I could have imagined. But it was the name next to the largest transactions that stopped my heart. Amelia Gagnon. My sister. My own flesh and blood. She wasn't just a jealous bystander who ripped a dress. She was his partner. The money from the accounts, the planning, she was in on all of it. This whole time, they weren't just betraying me. They were building a new life on the ruins of many others. "I thought so," Grandma said, her voice dangerously quiet as she looked over my shoulder. Some of those accounts were clients of your father's old firm. Mark couldn't have accessed them without help from someone inside the family. My sister hadn't just thrown me away, she had used our entire family. A wave of nausea washed over me. This book held the power to send my own sister to prison for a very long time. What was I supposed to do? Before I could even process the choice, my phone buzzed violently in my hand. It was a text from my dad. "Come quick. Amelia is on the microphone. She's telling everyone you're a liar and this is all a setup." I closed the book, the soft leather feeling like stone. A cold fire spread through my veins. She wanted a war? I was about to bring an army. I stood up, the black book feeling like a shield in my hand. My grandmother placed her hand on my shoulder. "A person's true character is shown in the storm," she said. "Go show them who you are." We walked out of the room together, leaving the ghost of my old life behind. The party music had died. A heavy silence hung over the room, broken only by my sister's voice, amplified and dripping with fake tears. She was on the stage, playing the greatest role of her life, the loving, worried sister. "She's just not well," Amelia cried into the microphone. "She's making up these horrible stories to hurt people." I started walking towards her. I didn't rush. Every step was calm, deliberate. The crowd of guests parted for me, their faces a mix of pity and confusion. Amelia's voice faltered as she saw me coming. She saw the black book in my hand, and the color drained from her face. She knew. I walked up the small steps and stood beside her on the stage. I didn't say a word. I just waited. The silence was louder than any shout. She stared at the book, then at me, her lies dying on her lips. Finally, I gently took the microphone from her shaking hand. "My sister is right," I began, my voice echoing through the silent hall. "I have been keeping a secret." I let the words hang in the air before turning to look directly at her. For example, I kept it a secret that my grandmother knew about Amelia's jealousy, and left a decoy dress out for her to destroy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother covered her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. My father started moving toward the stage, his face a thundercloud. I held up the black book for all to see. I also kept this a secret. Mark's little diary. "A diary of every family he and my sister planned to destroy," I said, my voice growing stronger. "A record of all the money they stole from the retirement funds of good people, like the Hendersons over there." I pointed to a kind elderly couple who looked at me in horror and dawning understanding. I opened the book to the page that damned my sister. "And here's the record of every payment Mark made to his partner in crime, Amelia Gagnon." I didn't show the crowd. I showed my father, who had reached the stage. He took the book, and I watched his heart break as he read the truth. Amelia crumbled, sobbing and denying everything, but the proof was right there, in her own father's hands. Just then, the two police officers, who had been quietly taking statements at the back, began walking toward the stage. Their purpose was clear. My father looked up from the page, his face aged by a decade of pain. He didn't hesitate. He held the ledger out to the officers. Amelia saw them coming, and she finally stopped crying. She looked at me, her face utterly blank with terror. My revenge was complete, but my family was shattered forever. The click of the handcuffs fastening around Amelia's wrists was a small, sharp sound in the huge, silent room. She didn't fight or scream. All the fire had gone out of her, leaving only a hollow shell. I watched them lead my sister away, her head bowed in shame, the beautiful bridesmaid dress now looking like a costume. I stepped down from the stage, the adrenaline leaving my body, replaced by a deep, bone-weary sadness. My mother was being held by my aunt, sobbing uncontrollably. I walked to my father. He stood like a man carved from stone, his eyes fixed on the doors his other daughter had just been taken through. He wouldn't look at me. I couldn't breathe in that room anymore. It was filled with ghosts and pity. I turned and walked, my beautiful dress sweeping across the floor, past the shocked faces of my friends and family. I pushed open the heavy main doors and stepped out into the cool evening air, completely alone. My grandmother appeared by my side, wrapping a warm shawl around my shoulders. "You were brave," she said softly. We stood together on the steps, watching the red and blue lights of the police car fade into the distance. It was carrying my sister away, and taking the family I knew with it. "Was it worth it, Grandma?" I whispered, a tear finally escaping and tracing a cold path down my cheek. "She's my sister. Mom and Dad. They're broken." The victory felt exactly like loss. My revenge was ash in my mouth. "The truth is always worth it," she replied firmly, her grip on my arm tightening. "You didn't start this fire, Chelsea. You just stopped pretending the house wasn't burning." She paused, her gaze distant. "And this is far from over. There's still the matter of the money." My heart sank. The stolen retirement funds. The ledger showed where it all went, but it was a tangled web of secret accounts and fake companies. "Grandma," I said, a new fear dawning. "Do you think they took money from Mom and Dad too?" She just looked at me, her silence a terrible answer. My phone began to ring, startling both of us. It was a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but Grandma nodded at me to answer. "Hello," I said, my voice hoarse. "Miss Gagnon?" a man's voice asked. "My name is David Chen. I'm the lawyer for the Henderson family." I listened, stunned, as he explained that a group of victims had been trying to build a case against Mark for months. The ledger I found was the key they had been missing. "The families want to know if you'll join our lawsuit," he said. "We want you to lead it." I was just a victim. How could I lead a lawsuit? "Why me?" I asked. The lawyer's answer sent a shiver down my spine. "Because to win, we don't just need to be right. We need a hero. After what you did today, you are the only one who can face them in court and win." A hero. The word felt strange, like a coat that didn't fit. I looked at the dark road where the police car had disappeared, then back at my grandmother's steady eyes. All my life, I had run from conflict. I had let Amelia take the spotlight, just to keep the peace. But running now meant leaving everyone else to fight alone. "He's giving you a sword, Chelsea," my grandmother whispered, as if reading my thoughts. "Revenge is a storm, but justice is the sunlight that comes after. You can bring the sunlight." She was right. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all the families in that ledger. I lifted the phone back to my ear, my decision made. "Mr. Chen," I said, my voice no longer trembling. "I'll do it. Tell me what I need to do." A quiet strength settled over me. The bride was gone. The warrior had arrived. The weeks that followed were a blur of painful silence. My mother barely came out of her room. My father spent his days on the phone with the bank, his face a grim mask. He had lost nearly everything. He spoke to me only when necessary, his voice heavy with a pain I couldn't seem to heal. I met the other victims. I sat with the Hendersons in their small apartment, the one they had to move into after Mark and Amelia stole their life savings. I saw their faces, listened to their stories, and my resolve hardened from steel into diamond. This was no longer my fight. It was our fight. One morning, a letter arrived, postmarked from the county jail. It was from Amelia. There were no apologies inside, only poison. She called me jealous and cruel, a pathetic girl who couldn't stand to see her happy. The letter ended with a warning: drop the lawsuit. You have no idea who you're messing with. I showed the letter to my grandmother. She read it, her face calm. "It's time you knew the whole story," she said, leading me to an old, dusty trunk in her attic. Inside were faded papers from 70 years ago, the original contracts between my grandfather and Mark's. "Mark's grandfather didn't just steal from our family," she said, pointing to a signature on the final page. "He forged your grandfather's name to do it. He cheated his way to the top with the help of powerful friends." She looked me right in the eye. "And we're not just fighting Mark. We're fighting their children." It was a conspiracy generations in the making. The names in the ledger weren't just random victims. They were connected to the old partners who had betrayed our family. Just as this horrifying truth was sinking in, my phone rang. It was David Chen, my lawyer. "Chelsea, we have a huge problem," he said, his voice tense with urgency. "They're trying to have the ledger thrown out. But that's not the worst part." He took a deep breath. "The judge just assigned to our case is Judge Franklin Matthews. His father was Mark's grandfather's closest partner." The lawyer's words hit me like a physical blow. A corrupt judge. A rigged game. It was a trap, and we were walking right into it. How can we possibly win? I asked my grandmother later that night, the weight of it all crushing me. The whole system is on their side. Grandma looked out the window into the darkness, her expression thoughtful. "Every powerful man has a weakness," she said. "Judge Matthews has spent his life building a wall around himself. Our job is to find the one loose stone." She tapped the old, forged document from the attic. "And find someone who helped him build it." I called David Chen back with this idea. He was hesitant, warning me that these people were dangerous. But he admitted we had no other choice. He gave me a name. Sarah, a former clerk who left the judge's office suddenly a year ago. No one knew why. She was our only hope. Finding her felt impossible. I spent days making calls and sending emails, but it was like chasing a ghost. Everyone I spoke to was afraid. The message was clear. Stay away from Judge Matthews. Amelia's warning about powerful friends echoed in my mind. They weren't just powerful. They were everywhere. Finally, I found her in a small town library 3 states away. Sarah was quiet and scared, her eyes darting around nervously as I told her my story. She refused to help, her hands trembling. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They can ruin you. They will destroy your life." I didn't argue. I just slid a photo across the table, a picture of the Hendersons, smiling on their 50th wedding anniversary, taken a year before their savings were stolen. "They already destroyed their lives," I said softly. "I'm just trying to give them a reason to smile again." I left my number and walked away. I returned home feeling defeated. But when I walked in, my father was sitting at the table, the old box of his father's papers open before him. For the first time in weeks, he looked right at me. The anger was gone, replaced by a deep, heartbreaking sorrow. "I always thought my father was a failure," he said, his voice cracking. He reached across the table and took my hand. "He died believing he lost everything. But he didn't. He had us." Tears filled his eyes. "You're not breaking this family, Chelsea. You are the one who is finally fighting for it." In that moment, as my father held my hand, my phone rang. It was a blocked number. I answered, my heart pounding. "I'll help you," a nervous voice whispered. It was Sarah. "I have recordings. Proof that will destroy the judge. But we have to be careful." "What do we do?" I asked, a surge of hope rushing through me. "The ledger is a decoy," she said urgently. "They expect you to use it. The real proof, the original account information that bypasses all their tricks, is hidden. Mark gave it to the one person he thought would never, ever betray him." My blood ran cold. "He gave it to your sister. The one person who hated me most in the world was the only one who could save us." My sister, Amelia, sitting in a jail cell, held the key. It felt like a cruel joke, the final, impossible test. But after everything we had been through, I knew there was no turning back. I had to face her. The prison visiting room was cold and grey, smelling of bleach and despair. When Amelia walked in wearing a dull prison jumpsuit, my heart ached. She was my sister, but the look in her eyes was pure ice. "Well, well," she sneered, sitting down behind the thick glass. "Look what the cat dragged in." I didn't waste time with anger or pity. I looked right at her and laid out the entire truth. The corrupt judge, his family's connection to ours, and the generations of lies. I told her about Sarah's recordings and the trap that had been set. They're going to sacrifice you, Amelia, I said simply. Mark is going to let you take the fall to save himself. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. He loves me. He would never. I could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. He used you, I said, my voice soft but firm. Just like his grandfather used ours. With them, it's never about love. It's only about winning. I told her about the deal she could get if she gave us the real evidence. She was still hesitating, clinging to the fantasy she had built. So, I played my final card. Dad and I found something in Grandpa's old papers, I said. A life insurance policy he took out on his partner, Mark's grandfather. I explained how the policy was tied to the company assets and how, after 70 years, it was now worth a fortune. We can take back everything they ever stole from us, and from all those families, I finished. But only if you help. This is your one and only chance to be on the right side. The final scene was not a wedding, but a courtroom. Judge Matthews was gone, his career destroyed by Sarah's recordings. Amelia, in exchange for a lighter sentence, had given us the evidence. With the old policy and the new proof, our case was unstoppable. We didn't just win. We took back everything. Months later, our family stood in my grandmother's living room. The Hendersons had their life savings back. My parents were financially secure again. My father put his arm around me, his eyes finally at peace. Your grandfather would be so proud, he said. The cracks in our family had been filled with something stronger than blood, truth. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. My sister's betrayal was meant to be my end, but it was just the beginning of my true story. It taught me that the prettiest dresses can hide the ugliest secrets, and that sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. Thank you for watching this journey unfold. If you believe that truth will always find the light, please hit the like button, share this story with your friends, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.